Welcome to the Source Stacks podcast, presented by YouTubers Insko
and TKC. If you enjoy the podcast, be sure to check out our socials.
And make sure to check out the video versions on YouTube.
Enjoy the podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Afinity today.
What up?
We got a couple questions for you. Let's just get started off with who are you and what do you make?
Sure. So I am Afinity, as he mentioned. I'm a producer, DJ, mix engineer, everything above. So I've been making music for like 10 plus years now. I can't even count how many years I've been making music. Too long, that's for sure. But this project, this Afinity project, is 2 years old. In this project, I primarily make like more melodic bass, melodic dubstep, regular dubstep, all sorts of dubstep leaning bass genres that include any melodic element, whether that's super saws or guitar or piano or anything kind of more on the emotional side for sure. So yeah, I mean, I think that answers your question.
Yeah, so we've got like a bunch of sort of rough questions. This is obviously going to be a bit kind of like taking time to get used to everything. One thing we do have written down is like, for people that don't know who you are and don't know what you do, what would you say is like the best way to describe your sound and like what kind of style you do?
Okay, so for Afinity, like the style, the signature sound for Afinity is very warm and energetic chord progressions. The songwriting, I feel like, does have a certain tone that you can't find anywhere else because I feel like I always give my input. Definitely things that kind of, I mean, a lot of the music kind of goes in waves depending on kind of what year or what I'm working on, if it's a project, if it's like a string of singles that are kind of like cohesively put together. So definitely more like sad subjects, relationships, and not only just like romantic relationships, but relationships with others, friendships. And I guess, again, on the sonic side, lots of bass glitches because a lot of my background comes from more of like a dubstep background. So that kind of bassy, glitchy, you can hear a lot of color in it for sure. Lots of different cuts and ear candy, which I think, although they are small details, are very important. And then just kind of that kind of dubstep feel fused with things similar to mainstream pop and contemporary. There's some R&B elements in there as well. Just a mishmash of everything I listened to growing up, put into one with dubstep, had a baby, boom, bam, that's Afinity.
Nice.
It's interesting to discuss, like, you know, was Pixel Terror like your first venture into music, or did you have stuff before? Like, what was overall your journey about just starting in music in general, would you say?
Yeah. Oof, it's a long journey, that's for certain. So for reference, at the time of this recording, I'm 27 years old. I probably made my first mashup at like 17 years old. So like a decade ago. Maybe even more, I don't know. But of course, like it was the DJ to producer pipeline, cracked my first FL Studio. I started making a lot more like big room house. It was very popular at the time. I used to listen to like Afrojack and Hardwell, you know, the classic progressive house and Dirty Dutch is what they called it. And then I always had like a big fondness for electro house too. I love Deadmau5. OG Porter Robinson, like Spitfire. Porter Robinson was like, I love that. Listen to a lot of Blau, you know, 3LAU, Blau, whatever you call him. He had those mashups. So that introduced me to a lot of that kind of stuff too. So like I definitely made a lot more like spin-in oriented big room and progressive house and that kind of stuff. But a lot of my background did come from like the OG electro house, OG bro step, like 140 BPM bro step, and like a lot more just like that sort of electro vibe, although I wasn't necessarily always making it. And like I switched between that. I did a lot of trap music, like more RL Grime-ish trap music. I did a lot of Bauer type trap music as well. And eventually some of my songs that I would like send to YouTube pages and different blogs landed me a bunch of like collaborations with other people. Met a lot of other people in both LA and just out of LA, where I'm from. And me and my former partner from Pixel Terror, Bentley, met that way too. He found one of my remixes, and like we just spoke with each other, got close, made a bunch of songs together. It was getting good reception, so we ended up making the Pixel Terror project. And we were going hard for like 6 years, just making banger after banger, bunch of remixes, hit all of our label targets, especially Monstercat, which to this day, I owe them so much. They've done so much for me as a person, the team over there, amazing people. So I worked a lot with them. They got us a lot of different gigs. We had multiple managers, and it just became this whole thing where I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about what I liked in music and how to operate, and just kind of what it meant to have a project that was based upon a certain brand. So with the Pixel Terror stuff, I learned a lot about how to brand myself, how to get a project with legs that kind of had its own art style, aesthetic, signature sound, sometimes intentional, sometimes unintentional, but like I was conscious about like what exactly a Pixel Terror song was and the brand guidelines and kind of what it sounded like. So just subconsciously being aware of like how to start a project, push it, and garner a fan base that kind of like had a certain expectation of you. And then also just kind of couple that with music that you loved and putting your influences on your sleeve. So a lot of that old like electro house definitely came back to the surface with that. So after doing Pixel Terror for like 6 years, we did a bunch of shows, released so much music. I always envisioned kind of doing it on my own as well. And I was doing it on my own. I did a lot of like chill, trap, a lot of UK garage, a lot of that kind of future garage too, future garage, whatever you want to call it. And I had my other project, which is very hard to pronounce. It's called Bosque or Busque. It's French for grove or forest. But whenever I officially left Pixel Terror, my manager Chance was like, hey, like let's start fresh, come up with a name that people could pronounce, something that maybe means a lot more to you. And like, let's get it going. Like, let's keep pushing it. Like, he started working with a different management company, the same people that do Millennium and William Black and Set the Sky. And he's like, if you want, I can help like utilize these resources to kind of like get this new project going again. Like I can help you get on some shows. He trusted me as a producer, and he knew that the quality was there. So like any good manager, he was going to do everything he could to like push me and get it in front of eyes so that the music organically can organically like resonate with people, because he believed in it. So as soon as we announced Pixel Terror's split, I announced Afinity, which the name is derived from like my affinity for music, whether or not I'm making it under a different name. Just like I can't help but feel drawn to it. Obviously, Afinity, the actual word affinity, has 2 F's. My initials are AF. So I was like, okay, maybe if I just cut 1 F, it'll be like my initials in the beginning, which could be like a cool Easter egg, but also like a cool way to separate myself. Obviously SEO is not helpful, and every single time you search Afinity, it tries to correct you. And I've been to numerous green rooms that have the word affinity, like the actual spelling, on the wall. So no luck there. But yeah, Afinity, sorry for rambling, but like now we're in the Afinity era. I wasn't too like familiar with melodic bass. I knew a lot about it because we did a bunch of like Millennium shows as Pixel Terror. Even did like an Millennium remix, and like if you hear back in the day some select Pixel Terror songs, you can kind of hear the early beginnings. Like you hear Super Saws, definitely a lot of songwriting. Obviously, I didn't do it that well, but definitely like the early beginnings of me trying to figure it out. So whenever I started the Afinity project, I think my goal, especially because leaving Pixel Terror, we had an Ophelia EP lined up that ended up getting canceled. And a lot of my early songs were remnants from that, like Breakthrough and Magnets. and a couple other unreleased songs were originally Pixel Terror songs that I finished up as Affinity. But kind of those melodic aspects stayed and like they resonated with me. And I had a lot of fun doing the bassier sound design oriented stuff as Pixel Terror, but I was like, you know what? I love a song. I want to like use my songwriting skills and sharpen it and kind of focus more on that, because although I love making bangers, I feel like I want to like leave a lasting impression, and I want to make music that is kind of valued more so because of its like meaning and songwriting and lyrics and melody, as opposed to like making computer boop boop music, which I still love and it still has its context. And as you can see, I've released a few like harder dubstep tracks and definitely more like playable songs as opposed to songs that you listen to. But that was just kind of like my mission going into it. I was like, I want to focus more on the songwriting. I feel like that's equally as difficult. That's as difficult as sound design, but just it kind of uses a different part of your brain, and it's a different skill in itself. You know, a songwriter versus like a sound designer, it's like something more technical oriented, something more feeling based. So I was definitely trying to channel that starting Affinity, and the first bunch of releases, you know, I was blessed to still have like my friendships and connections with the labels and with past collaborators, and also, like I mentioned, chance being a part of that management company and having a roster. I was able to land my first collaboration with Exod and Amity, Halion vocals from the get-go. I did a lot of research, and I was like, you know what, a lot of these melodic bass guys are doing Nev collaborations, so I'm like, I'm gonna get a couple of those going. Obviously, you know, I listened to Island a billion times. It's like a meme at this point in the TKC server. And I absolutely love that song. And I feel like a lot of my decisions, especially early on in Affinity, was like, okay, how do I capture this type of feeling? Because this song resonates with me so much, melody-wise, production-wise. Like, how do I like borrow that inspiration and kind of start like forming my own sound? Because like this new project was me trying to figure out like, yo, where do I go with it? Like, what kind of drums am I using? Like, what do I find myself using the most? Like, how should I approach it? What kind of like BPM? What kind of style? Like, I'm too technical for my own good sometimes, but also like as these 2 years have gone and all the numerous songs I've put out and made and worked on and people I've met and videos, and just as I've grown as a person in the last 2 years, I feel like I'm listening to more about my subconscious. I feel like I'm finally channeling that feeling side as opposed to the technical side. So as in the beginning, it was a lot more like, okay, like, let me run with this. Like, let me see how I can get it going. And now it's like, okay, like, how do I immerse myself? How do I like maybe not look at sounds, but kind of like simplify it so that I can better like produce something that is more feeling based, less technically like formulated. So yeah, the last 2 years have just been like a blessing of just meeting new people, putting myself out there more, because since I'm not a duo anymore, I have to focus more on the marketing, focus more on the vision. I could bounce ideas obviously with my managers and the people around me, but at the end of the day, like, I have to listen to my own intuition, my own heart. And it's just been a lot of just finding new confidence within myself, doing a bunch of research. I picked up Blender, so I've been making a lot of the art that from the Afinity project, and I've just been, you know, refining my songwriting skills and just listening to a bunch of music in my genre, listening to a bunch of music outside of my genre, and kind of looking at music in a different way. More from like a feeling, and like I mentioned a billion times right now, more of like a feeling, more of instinctual, less like technical, less on the nose. Like, how do I like move someone? How do I move myself without being so conscious of like the little fine details, like a frequency and like a sound choice? Like, how do I kind of think bigger and instead of like the small details that might not necessarily matter? So Affinity has been a journey. It's still continuing, and there's a lot more on the horizon, but that's, I feel like, the summary of the last of the last 10 plus years of my music journey so far.
Yeah, no, it was good. There's a lot of things in there that like I didn't know about. You were saying with the whole AF with Affinity and stuff like that, and just everything. There was a lot of really interesting stuff in there. Would you say, like, going back to the whole Pixel Terror thing, would you say there's a big difference in terms of like producing stuff solo to doing stuff in a duo? Like, is it like a whole separate sort of process when it comes to like producing and songwriting and everything in general?
Mm-hmm. So with the Pixel stuff, we definitely we would be in the same room together. It'd be like a collaboration every single time. And like we get a lot of like, we would work on different things and like get each other's ears on it. And it kind of helped because sometimes you think something is dope or like you're unsure of it and you have another person in the room that can either validate or be like, yo, bro, this is like trash, or like, oh, like maybe try this. So although it's always good to have someone next to you, and even today, like I'm constantly sharing my music with my friends. Like the EP that we're going to talk about, like I've been sending it over and just asking for feedback, and it's super helpful because like you get to see it with a new lens. You kind of listen to the same song on and on again, and like it gets tough to distinguish whether or not you like it. You know, like I'm sure if you listen to the same song on and on again, like you start questioning things about your own insanity. But doing the duo stuff, it's definitely fun, and I think it's really good with whenever like you guys have a similar vision. Me and Bentley had like a similar vision a lot more in the beginning, but as like we both like grew as people and grew as individuals, I know he wanted to take it into one direction, I wanted to take it into another, and it got difficult because like whenever you have a project that's very embedded and has its own style and aesthetic, like you can see Pixel Terror and kind of like understand the sound, understand the vibe, the direction, the vision. Like it's like, I think the way we described it was video game, very energetic bass music with lots of dubstep sounds, lots of square waves, arps, if we're getting technical. And Bentley was definitely vibing a little bit more with like the rocktronic stuff. I was feeling more like the more commercially oriented, like pop, radio, vocal type of stuff. And like whenever that divide starts to happen, which is kind of inevitable in a lot of cases, like people are individuals, they like individual things. Like there's nothing wrong about it. But when we started like talking about what we wanted, and we had a few like tough conversations because, you know, we put so much time into it, but eventually I think it was best. Obviously, I think we're both doing great on our own, and we're not held back. We don't feel like we have to like work on the song or the sound just because like we have that expectation. Like we can move on and start this new chapter and like experiment and like find ourselves even more. So with the Affinity stuff, producing on my own is definitely, at first it was scary, but I think just getting some feedback, hearing what people say, hearing what you guys say about the music, and, you know, listening to my own music and just like really sitting down, thinking about it, borrowing things I like from other songs. Like I feel like I've strengthened kind of my A&R ear of like what's good and bad. And even if I do ask people, I feel like I can filter the feedback. So it's not like I take things at like exactly how they're given. Like I take it with a grain of salt, so I can like pick and choose. So if anything, being on my own has strengthened my taste, and now I'm less inclined to second guess myself.
Yeah, fair enough. Makes sense.
That makes a ton of sense. I think I got one more question about Pixel Terror too, kind of relatively on that topic. Then I guess we can move to the EP. Kind of the big one I had too was, I think when it comes to a lot of the times when artists switch up their sound, generally there can be some sort of negative fan reception in that, or not necessarily negative, but they're just not really sure how to respond to that. Like, what was the initial reception when you had started the Afinity project? Where like, was it a lot of Pixel Terror fans? Was there like some potentially like negative feedback that came from the whole switch over? Like, I guess if you can kind of walk us through that whole sort of process when it comes to making a new alias and stuff like that.
I was like making this music a lot before, like whenever we were like in talks of splitting, before we even announced everything, when we got quiet, it was like near the end of the year, and people were like, yo, like what's going on? When's new music? And I was like kind of like in my own little incubation phase. I was like making music. I was really stoked about it. And I think I think I did like bring over a lot of the sounds from Pixel Terror. Like I didn't necessarily just like, okay, we did dubstep before, now we're gonna do like indie dance fusion. No, like it wasn't that. It was like dubstep to more like melodic dubstep. So it wasn't too big of a pivot. And like I even used similar drums that I would use in Pixel Terror. Like I used like my snare sample choices are very similar. It's not like we separated and like two different outcomes came. Like it was like, okay, like let's break apart and like let's bring our favorite parts back. You know, so it wasn't like a huge shift, which helps because if you do a huge shift, it's kind of hard to retain that fan base. Not to say that like if you're not meant for the same fan base, it's okay. You probably just have to start a little bit more fresh and find your lane that way. But I didn't get too much criticism, I don't think. If I'm like looking back, I think people like, I think the one thing I can note though was like, oh, Bentley's still doing the hard stuff. Aria's doing the melodic stuff. It makes perfect sense. Aria was the melodic side and Bentley was the grittier dubstep side. When that wasn't the reality, like we both did it equally. Like, so I guess that was like the one comment I saw. People are like, oh, even though like some others collabs, like the Roy Knox collab, they're like, oh yeah, Roy Knox always does dubstep. That's his part. And then Afinity just does melodic stuff. So that's just the melodic stuff. So I think it was more just like a confusion for people. They're like, oh, Aria's making melodic stuff, like melodic dubstep, supersonics. Like that was his contribution. Like, no, like it was both. But I like am just channeling my melodic bass, you know, influences a little bit more this time around. Obviously, like it's not always the case. And I think people kind of like can hear the influences and can kind of pick out like, oh, okay, like there are some basses in here that sound like it's starting to like take shape and like I can see the contributions, but I can also like start separating the two. And a lot of people don't even know I used to be a part of Pixel Terror. A lot of people are unaware. Sometimes people are surprised. Sometimes people get it. I get DMs from both, like, oh, I didn't even know. Some people are like, oh, I've been following you since, and like I love the new music. So it's a mixture. It's been mostly positive, though, I could say. Like I haven't gotten any negative comments. People are like I love the music. Like I know you can go harder. And like for that, I say like there's gonna be some harder tracks. Just like wait a second for it to make sense.
Yeah, no. I think like to be honest, I'm definitely one of those people who I didn't know he was a part of Pixel Terror probably until like Caden mentioned it before, because for me it was like I used to listen to a lot of Monstercat stuff when I started finding EDM, Pixel Terror being one of them, and then the Afinity project I just found through doing like my reaction videos and people recommended me artists. And then that's kind of like how I came across the Afinity project, and then it's all just kind of like linked together like that for me. But going into like the EP, which at the time of this coming out is out now, I believe. We just wanted to kind of like touch on the EP in general, sort of like how it started, whether or not you planned to do an EP and had that intention when it started, just all that kind of.
Mm-hmm. So the EP is super interesting story, and it's kind of a story about like your own vision as an artist, but also kind of like what makes sense for how far you are as an artist. Because people know, like, okay, if you're a new artist, and like you're growing, you're finding new fans, you're on the earlier stage of being like of this alias, for example, 2 years in, still pretty fresh. When is the right time to drop a project? Because in my opinion, and I've talked to this with Caden a few times, just like it's just an opinion. This isn't like canon, but I have a firm belief that singles are good when you're trying to find new fans. EPs and albums are better when you want to strengthen your relationship with your existing fan base. And the reason that is because singles definitely are the ones that are a lot more marketable. Like I'm not going to put out like some of the songs on this EP aren't single material just because I feel like they work better within context around the songs they're with, as opposed to a single. It could stand on its own. Maybe it's more like easier to market, maybe a little bit easier for people to get into. It's not based off of the context of like your other discography. It's a single. It's a standalone song, and it's easier to market. It's one song. It has its time to shine. And then like with an EP and album, you're talking about anywhere from like 8 to 10 to 12 tracks, most of them new, not counting the singles. And a lot of them, like when you release a body of work like that, you can't expect people that don't know anything about you to necessarily care. And it's just kind of the day and age we live in. It's kind of the reality. It's fine. Like if I come across an album from some random artist without hearing anything about them, I'm probably not going to understand it. Like I don't get it. Like I feel like I'm like chiming in a time where I'm maybe not a fan. Like I don't feel inclined to listen to this whole body of work. Like everyone's time is limited. Everyone's attention span is limited. Like it's tough to acquire new fans with a body of work. And it's definitely more expensive to market it because instead of just one single, you're marketing 12 plus songs, and like it gets pricey to each give them their moments, whether it's for content or for like marketing. So the way it came was I probably had like 10 songs, 10 singles or something along the lines of that. I don't know, don't quote me on that. And I was talking to Lowly, a label that I work very close with. Mark, if you're watching this, I love you. He's an A&R there that I talk to like every week. Good guy. And we like just kind of brainstorm like next releases. And I was going to lock in about like 5 songs with them, 5 singles. And it had these songs kind of floating around that I loved, that I felt like couldn't stand as singles. Not because like it wasn't a strong song, not because it wasn't like super catchy or anything. It was just because like maybe the way they were formatted was a little bit weird. Like maybe one sounded like an outro, so maybe releasing it as a single was kind of weird. One sounded like an intro. Other ones were just like they touched upon a certain subject line, but I feel like they were slower or maybe not single. Like they didn't feel like a standalone song. So I pitched that idea to Mark. I'm like, hey Mark, like I owe you guys 5 songs with a Lowly. Like I'm about to give that to you guys. What if I tack on like 3-4 extra songs at the end of these songs that I'm like absolutely in love with, that I felt like need to be a part of a larger project in order to make sense. And he was stoked. And then we ran with it. I put out Misunderstood. That was the first single I put out. When You Fall, I put out Without Me. I have another one coming out. We're recording this in March. I have another one coming out later this month, and then the entire EP in April, which I don't know, by the time this comes out, it's out. So we have all of the songs lined up. I'm in the finishing stages. I definitely like look at the whole track list, and it's nice because I'm like, when it is a body of work, you kind of make decisions for each song that fit within the larger context. So like I'm like focusing on them not as individuals, but all as how they play a part in the track list sequence. So it's been super fun doing that. It's super inspiring. I think just this time around, it may have felt like picking and choosing songs that I had lying around and kind of making them fit. And I think I did that pretty nicely, but definitely moving forward, like when it comes to like a larger album where there's a lot more at stake and maybe there's a tour pitch alongside it, like I definitely want to start from the get-go. But this was still as equally as a fun process. It was still very creatively fulfilling, and I was able to, like I said, make them all work within each other.
A lot. I've personally enjoyed a lot of the songs off the EP. I think at least of the ones that have released so far, there have only been 3 so far. But I guess like one question I would really have in terms of that EP is like, it's definitely evident that there are some inspirations, but I guess if you could kind of dive a little bit more onto like the inspirations of the sounds that you have and like the sounds that you've been kind of inspired by the most to create this project.
So, okay, let's break them down. So we got Misunderstood. I did a whole video about how like it came to be, but like long story short, schedule a session with Dia and her co-writer Jaden, got in the studio. She was feeling misunderstood, but and then we wrote the song. I made like a rough little part to it, and like I knew just based off the subject line that it was going to be an emotional one, very personal one. So the sounds I used in that, very filtered and very barren. It's not a very exciting song in terms of like production in the verses. Like it's feels muffled, and it kind of gives Dia the time to shine, because her voice is the only thing you can really, like, you can't really focus on anything else except for that voice, because on a technical level, her voice fills the brighter end of the spectrum and nothing else does. Like the drums are it sounds like she's singing in front of like the music is coming from the wall, like it's being blocked out, like outside. So I think for melodic bass, you typically hear like very like, you know, hi-hats and claps and like chords and pianos, even in the verses where it's like super exciting. This was like more like a solo song where she can like you can pay attention to the lyrics center stage, as opposed to having like everything around you distract you and ear candy and and of course those songs are amazing. This song just felt like, okay, like let me take what she's saying and match the production to that. And then it kind of builds, and it has a time to kind of, when the drop hits, like release. And that's when I brought more of my staple sound design, some guitar, chords, pianos. I think it was the first time experimenting with like messier drums, more acoustic driven drums. Like I've worked with some cleaner acoustic drums on I'll Be Your Home with Lizzie Land, but this one was a lot more like boom, ch, ba-dum, ch, as opposed to like super tight EDM kick and snare, you know? So that song is special because like I took a lot of inspiration from other songs, the filter on the vocal, like the little telephone thing. So it was fun to experiment, and like I didn't feel like I had to do too much to get the message across. When You Fall had my try at more like rocktronic influenced stuff, more acoustic, like band acoustic drums. I was really inspired by his other song with Set the Sky, William Black, on my own, which is a banger. It was around the same time that we got introduced. Chance introduced me to him. So like some influence from there for sure, but I put my own spin on it with like the drop drums and everything. And he wrote that in like an hour. Like that dude, Braden, Say We Can Fly. We got on a Zoom call, I think it was during the pandemic, and he wrote it, recorded it in front of me, and like just sent me the stems. He's like, all right, bro, like peace, like I'll check in, but like here it is. And I was like, wow, that was so fast. But obviously we went back and forth, and like on the art, on the music. Like he's such a good guy. I talk to him pretty often too, here and there, and like we just catch up. So that was When You Fall. And then Without Me was the vocals were sent to me by Dia's manager, Amanda. She's awesome. Still talking to her about other cool vocal collaborations even to this day. So we keep in contact. And she sent me these vocals from Concrete Castle, their band. And the original BPM was like a house BPM. Like if I showed you the original demo, it was like, why you keep. So it's that. It was 4 on the floor, okay? And like I was like, oh, like let me speed it up. Like let me make it like a cool house track, or like cool melodic dubstep track. And I had like an instrumental before that I felt like it worked well, and like I put them together, and it was like a mishmash of sounds. And I feel like that song also aligned really well with the previous 2 songs. You know, definitely a little bit more of a like sadder, emotional, like more of a cry as to like, why is this person moving on? And with Misunderstood, talking about how Dia feels like she isn't like heard, and that like the conversations we have feel a little more service level. And on the Say We Can Fly track, where Braden's kind of like confessing, like if you go deeper into the whole, like I'm there for you, like I feel like they all aligned really well. Felt like they were in the same universe. And when I locked down those as singles, the artwork kind of came to me like, okay, like let's like come up with a story here, and like let's see how these all can connect aesthetically, because from a sound perspective and from a message perspective, they all do.
So would you say like the EP as a whole, kind of like, bearing in mind we haven't heard it yet.
You guys haven't heard it.
Would you say, yeah?
Not
would
yet.
you say that it's like kind of got a story throughout the whole thing? Like, does it feel like one big sort of project? Because you were saying about how those two singles kind of felt like they went together. Would you say like the whole EP kind of feels like a big story almost?
So just for context, the EP, if you pay attention to any of like the art or like anything that I do visually on my socials, or if anyone's ever been to a show, like it's very space star themed. That's kind of like, those are things I like for some reason just always come to. Like I love looking at pictures of stars. I like the idea of like stars, how attainable and unattainable they are in the world, the galaxies. So visual wise, I've been playing around in Blender, trying to find ways to find that connection with these songs and that idea of the unknown galaxy and everything. So the songs kind of evoke a similar feel in that like uncertainty, and like they feel kind of, like I mentioned, like they're connected, but they talk about feelings of disconnection. And just to kind of help it move forward, I think I was able to get like the intro and the outro kind of starting and ending the story in a similar way, and the songs in between kind of connect like lyrically and in a way where they kind of like, you kind of have like a roller coaster of energy, no energy. Some songs are chill, like Misunderstood. Some songs are a lot more energetic, like Without Me. So I think this EP is kind of like a starting point in the story of Afinity. I'm still kind of unsure as to how I'm going to continue it, but what it is, just from the art and just from how things are moving from the first song to the last, it's kind of a journey leaving wherever you are. I have a lot from the artwork for Misunderstood. It's a girl looking out of a spaceship window. With When You Fall, it's a new land, something more mystical, something more magical. Without Me, the same character is on top of a spaceship. You can kind of see where it's heading. It's like a journey, and you'll see soon enough in the art that it's going from there to like actually taking off and heading in a direction up, wherever that is, to find wherever it is out there in the galaxy, because wherever this person's journey is heading to, it's towards uncertainty, towards the unknown, towards space, towards like a barren landscape. And the art has definitely mimicked that. The music you'll hear soon enough, is going to mimic that as well. I definitely want to get more concrete with it and be a little bit more on the nose about the story. But the good thing about this EP is that it's like part one in a series that has a lot to grow.
Nice. Yeah. So it's definitely more of just like, it's not just making music at this point. It's not just like a collection of songs. It's got like a whole story and meaning behind it, even like outside of the EP, actually, for the Afinity project. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, just trying to find a way to connect all the songs together, because like I mentioned, singles were a lot more like, they felt disconnected. And if you see the previous songs, they're all amazing songs. They all kind of connect in the way that I have a certain style, and then like my influences are coming to light. But with this EP, like I'm trying to keep it kind of like package them together, keep a similar aesthetic, use the same sounds, lots of guitar, lots of piano, lots of sound effects. I'm using intentionally a lot of the same drums and the same storylines, and the chord progressions at some parts in between the single feel like they're moving towards something to like a more climactic end, which you'll hear. I think you've actually heard the last song. I submitted it to the Insko TKC demo.
Is that the one with Josh Rubin?
Yeah, the Josh Rubin one.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
I feel like I should have sent you guys this before, but like I want you guys to I want to see the reaction. You
No,
know?
exactly.
Like I want to see the TKC Insko reaction, and I want your brutal opinion.
It's going to be fun for us to after talking to you, going into the EP reactions and actually kind of have know about the story behind it, or know that there is a story behind it at least, and be able to sit there and kind of almost know that we should pay a bit more attention, because I know like when it comes to reacting to music, for me at least, sometimes I just kind of go like listen to more of the production, less of like the vocals, whereas now I know all of this. I know that I'm going to go into this EP and be like, okay, I'm actually going to like pay a little bit more attention. So I think in a way it's definitely kind of at least made me look forward to the EP more and kind of look forward to doing that reaction.
I like that. Yeah, be more conscious about it. And like I mentioned, like the songwriting is a good majority of the song. It's kind of, I think, sometimes the main element that separates a good song from a great song, because production is always important, but vocals and melody and lyrics is kind of like literally someone speaking to you.
Yeah.
It's the best. I think the best way to express emotion is by talking to someone or telling someone.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I think the thing is too, because if you look at like a lot of the bigger melodic bass songs that have blown up in the industry, a lot of them are very, like vocal driven, really strong vocals. And so I think a lot of the time, like producers, especially in the melodic world, will really always try to like see if they can get like the best sounding thing, when in reality I feel like a lot of the time it really is about like good songwriting, great melodies, and a lot of like the fundamentals of music that sometimes do get forgotten.
Yeah, it's the most. These are songs, they're. I mean, the production is important. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But you can't discount kind of like the main driving force, which is vocals and which is songwriting. Like a lot of great songs that I'm sure you hear from all these melodic bass artists, they have multiple writers on them. The melody is kind of what gets stuck in your head. When you go to a show and you hear one of your favorite songs, the vocals on top of another song, like it's something I look forward to the most. Like it's the biggest make or break. Production is more forgiving. Vocals, like you really have to make sure that you get a nice, beautiful, catchy vocal that expresses emotions good enough.
I guess we can kind of head on to our last topic here. So obviously everyone knows you've been touring with William Black.
I have been touring with William Black.
So one of the big things I think that, especially as someone that DJs, I think that it kind of would be nice to get some insight kind of on that, as like, I guess you can kind of just go over like, what's your kind of overall experience heading on, like, you're not necessarily as like the support on like every show per se, but you've definitely been one of the more present ones. So I guess kind of take us through your experience of like how being sort of like a touring artist has been and being a part of that whole scene.
This tour has been, first of all, so far, I think we're like 5 shows in maybe right now. And it's been the most fun, the most eye-opening experience, I'm so lucky that I get to tour with William Black, because that guy is the funniest guy, the most like genuine.
He's great.
Supportive human. Him and my manager Chance, like we're going everywhere. So it's been like a great time just being with them. It's been just like traveling with the boys and just playing a set as well. And like every show has been nuts. I met William back in Ember Shores. I met him prior as Pixel Terror at Nocturnal, and I've played a few shows alongside him as Pixel 2, like back in the past. I think we started getting close though whenever I played Ember Shores 2 years ago, and I would just see him occasionally. And obviously, like I'm a big fan of his stuff, and he knew the Pixel stuff, and we would see each other all over the place. I'd come out and support him during his shows, and we've like definitely gotten super close over the years. And eventually when it came down to touring, like I was playing some shows with him, and he was like, listen, like I like what you're doing. Like I would love to have you come on board for some of the shows. Chance was definitely a big support. He was telling me he was getting me on a bunch of them. And then when I finally got all the dates, like I was super stoked, and the shows that we've played so far have been phenomenal. And the energy has been very different at each show. Some shows are younger, some shows they're more fans. Some shows are like the sold out one in ST, people are just happy to be there. So like the crowd is insane, and like you feed off that energy. But all in all, it just feels like, yeah, you're just traveling with your friends. You're like, I'm learning a lot about like the behind the scenes of how to run a tour, just by observing and asking questions and kind of like seeing the venues coming early. If you guys have a chance to catch any of the shows with or without me, like 100% recommend. Will's show is nuts. And it's just been, I feel like I'm a part of it because I'm on so many dates and because like we're all super close. Like I feel like I get to see it from the beginning to the end. I get to see how good the sets get. I get to see like what Will's working on and like some of the tunes he's like trying out and like showcasing during his sets, because it's changing every few shows. Like he adds a new song or changes a song, or he's like working on this like a really sick dubstep tune that he's been like messing around with. So it's fun to like ask him questions, talk to him. We like always just like shoot the, I don't know if I could cuss, but shoot the shit.
Yeah.
And it feels nice. It feels nice being able to be with someone so supportive and someone so hilarious. Like that guy is a good guy.
I think like the whole touring thing, I feel like must be a very different sort of lifestyle to one that you're probably used to, which I think is a good opportunity to kind of talk about like maybe the benefits and the sort of challenges that come along with it. Because I can imagine it's a lot of like on the go, sort of like a lot of planning, a lot of just everything. So could you like go into detail with that a bit?
So for me, it's not too difficult. I just have to get my flight. I have to get my hotel room. I have to book a photographer, and then I get my beautiful USB that I've prepared over the past few weeks prior to tour starting. And I get to play my set. I've switched out a bunch of different songs and edits and mashups and songs that have been released. So like I add them to the set. So it's been super simple there. For someone like Will or like a headline act, you need to think more about like the production. So like, are you going to bring lasers, like your CO2? Like usually you can like, you have someone that helps. I saw Kane laugh at the CO2. Yeah, you have to plan these things, you know, not every venue has it. So Chance, our manager, he keeps like talking to locals. I think they have someone else that they work with that kind of sources all that to make things happen, because every place is different. It's not like this one in this case isn't like a bus tour where you're like bringing production on a bus. It's more like they fly in, fly out, bring lasers, bring VJ who's fed, super nice dude, love that guy. And they're just playing around with just bringing things in and out. And not every show is the same. Not every show has. I mean, I think they all have CO2, thank God. And but I think some of them had pyro. It's a lot of just like every venue's different format, different capacity, different demands. Like some shows have been insane. Some shows have been really receptive too. But it's just kind of like rolling with the punches, going to venues and like seeing what works for each case.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I think like me being the British one here, it's kind of like it's definitely a lot kind of different and more interesting for me, because I feel like EDM as a whole is very like more out there in America and stuff, especially with like melodic bass and everything like that. Like I think the only real sort of, even if you would class it as a melodic bass artist that's come over here, is like Elenium, and that's a very rare occurrence. So it's kind of like to actually hear about sort of a tour that is going around the whole of like the US or like certain parts of the US and stuff is sort of interesting to see how all of that works and like the behind the scenes stuff, because I personally know like nothing about all of that at all. So
yeah. I mean, it gets simple. I mean, obviously, like when you get to like down to the real logistics, it's could be a mess unless you have someone like on top of it. But it's pretty simple. You go to the venue. A lot of the venues you just like tell them what you need. A lot of them have it. Some of them don't. So you kind of have to like source it from either a local place or bring it yourself. But it feels simple when you talk about it. Definitely, you have to work hard in order to get a tour like that going. But they make it work, and they do it well.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of planning.
Every show's been nuts. Every show's been nuts. The visuals I'm seeing are crazy, and like if the show itself is like the best. Like Will goes hard when he plays.
I will say, speaking of visuals, have you got to press the CO2 button is the question. That's the most
Not
important
yet.
question
Not
we have
yet.
to ask.
I'm waiting to press the CO2 button. I'm very eager to do it. I've been practicing. I've been in my room in the mirror, just like, just
pressing the
my hand
button,
up and down.
just practicing pressing it.
It's very tricky to get access to the CO2 button. People are guarding that with their lives.
Yeah.
There are gatekeepers in this CO2 world, and I intend on
pressing it.
Yeah, I intend on pressing it sooner than later. I'll tell you, that's all I can say for now. But I've signed a certain NDA saying that I can't talk about the CO2 button too much in public. No, I'm kidding. That's been fun. For context, it's been like a meme. Just everyone, like, anytime I post anything, they're like, let this man just press the CO2 button.
Let him press it.
And I agree with them.
I guess kind of on that topic as well, too. Like, I guess going through that tour, obviously there's going to be some stories and whatnot, some fun moments, some not fun ones. I guess, like, if you could describe it, like, what would you say has been like the most memorable story of the tour so far? If you had to give, like, share one right off the bat.
Most memorable story from the tour.
I mean, you're only 5 shows in right now, right? So
I know it's very new. I want to say, like, just like so far the most memorable show, and I think I mentioned it a few times, was San Diego. So I live in LA, so I could just drive down to San Diego. I don't have to take a flight or anything. So I drove down with Fed, the VJ guy, and as we were driving by, like, we got a text like, "Hey, it's sold out. Like, the show sold out." And that from that text to, like, the show, like, I was like, wow, like, that's great. Like, I'm super hyped now. Like, it's sold out. Like, random people who don't even follow me are DMing me like, "Hey, I love your music. Please give me, like, a ticket for the show." And I'm like, bro, like, like, I can't. And like I wish, like, when I was talking to Will was like, dude, I really wish I could give them tickets. Like, I wish they got tickets sooner, but, like, it's going to be a crazy show. So for me, I'm like the opener for a lot of these shows, so I play early. And when I, like, got on stage, it was, like, already packed. Like, I think I played at like 10 or 11. It was, like, packed, and people were, like, loud, shouting, jumping. Like, I was sweating by the end of the set. And I remember going upstairs to the green room and telling Will and Chance, I'm like, "Yo, guys, like, this is gonna be the craziest show." And, like, not to say that the shows before weren't crazy, but this, like, was a different energy. I think because it was sold out, people were, like, there's a lot more hype, and people were, like, just excited to be there because it feels exclusive. Like, you're at a sold out show. Like, this is the place to be. Like, it was at Soma, the venue. People were like, "Yo, Soma is the place to be tonight." Like, it felt like this was, like, the spotlight of EDM shows in San Diego that weekend. Very niche award to give, but it was that. And then, like, I Will was super hyped. So whenever he got on stage, like, and just seeing him on, like, the last 3 or 4 shows before that, like, I can tell this is different. And he was, like, smiling, sweating on the mic, saying things off the cuff. Like, "You guys are, like, amazing. Like, I'm having the best time right now." Like, he was, like, being candid about how amazing the crowd was, because the crowd was insane. And then just seeing that, and, like, the aftermath, and seeing how sweaty he was, and just, like, how happy he was, and, like, how happy everyone was that the show was sold out, and that the crowd was so receptive. Like, it felt for him like a big milestone, but also just, I was really happy to be there to see all of it.
Yeah, nice.
And play the show.
Sounds like a sick night. I mean, I still have yet to, like, see William Black or anything. I'm honestly so tempted to, like, next year. I really just want to, like, fly out to the US for, like, a couple of months or something. I just catch as many artists as I like on tour, because I just feel like I'm not really gonna get much of an opportunity unless I do. So I definitely need to at some point. But going back to, like, the reception of, like, crowds and stuff, obviously San Diego sounded mad, being sold out, and, like, having that many people, like, from the get-go. What's kind of, like, the normal reception as being, like, a Doors DJ to some of these shows? Like, is there sometimes times where it's maybe a little bit quieter? What's, like, kind of your average sort of reception when it comes to doing these sets on tour?
So they've been good. In all honesty, I am usually, like, scared to be the first person, because you're like, oh, you're, like, the first person. Like, people are just probably just getting in. But in all honesty, like, I don't know if it's because of just the people, the different cities, or, like, the people who are there. Like, I've been having the best, like when it like 10, 20 minutes into the set, I have an hour set, like it's popping. Like people like are all like gathered, like the energy is there. And I've had like the best time. Like I've played like shows where I was like more direct support before like the main act, where like I would play like right before them. And those were good too, but like for some reason, maybe it's because the music I play aligns with like the crowd there. Like I make very similar music to like Grabbits and William Black and Alley Cat. So like it feels like I'm a part of a lineup where like it all makes sense. It's not like I'm just opening up for like a house DJ and I'm a melodic bass DJ. Like we're all bass DJs, whether or not we're melodic or not. Like it feels like I'm still catering to them, and it feels genuine. Like I'm not just doing it because like I'm playing to that crowd. Like they genuinely like the music, and like the DMs I get and the story reposts and everything is just like amplifies that. Like I get some texts. Some people are like, "Yo, like I like was looking forward to this show because of you." Like I get some of those, but I get like some that are like, "I've never heard of you in my life, but that was crazy. Like you got a new fan."
Yeah.
So it's been like a mishmash of great reactions. I haven't gotten a bad one. And also at the San Diego show, because Fed was doing the VJing, the visuals for me, I like have this visual where it's like a QR code that like jumps up and it leads to my website. And on the website, it's like a questionnaire, like, "Hey, you're at an Afinity set. Like, how good am I doing?"
That's great.
So he like put it up. So like for the SU show, he put it up behind me, and I got like 90 responses of people like, "Oh, this is awesome. It was funny." I can't.
That's such a great idea.
I would. Yeah, no, it was cool. It was cool. I hope no one steals it, but I mean, it's a fun idea.
Honestly, though, I think those huge crowd receptions are just like definitely reflective of how William Black, I think, really builds his show overall. Because like I think when you've got established artists that are making that same type of music and they're going all night, I think that really speaks to the fans as well. Because I think that they know that if they come early, they're going to be experiencing the same music that they love with the fans as well. And it's not one of those shows that it's just like, it's just the party people that are just coming to party. Like it's people that are like genuinely there for the music, and he's like prioritizing the music. So I think that's definitely what I think William Black has done so well with that.
Dude, people are hyped to come to the show. People are like, excited. No, he deserves it. This guy's been going hard forever, and he always talks about how this is like a big pivotal moment in his career because this tour is like hitting numbers, and the response on both socials and like whenever people like are there, like you can tell it's different. You can tell they're there and they are in love with music. They're genuine fans. Like they're buying the merch, they're at the rails, they're singing the songs, they got their cameras out. Like this is like a big moment for him, and it feels like this album is like another step up in his career. And I'd love to be there for it.
I think we've got one more. I think we'll end it here. We got one more question for you. But I think overall, conversation's been great. Loved having you on the podcast.
Definitely learned a lot.
Great first guest. Overall, I think if we had just had to touch like one more topic, I think if there's like anything that the fans may not potentially know about you, your music, or anything along the lines of that, like what's one thing that you'd really like to kind of share about yourself that a lot of people maybe perhaps don't really know that well?
Okay. Let me think about this one.
No pressure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure. It's like, hey, you got one thing to choose. Like, what's it going to be?
Yeah.
You want to tell them your favorite ice cream color? You want to tell them deepest, darkest fears? I don't know.
See how serious you go.
Whatever you want, man. Whatever you want.
I'm gonna do a cheesy one, but it's very genuine. Like, I feel like right now this Affinity project, with it being so new, and like I'm just like me prioritizing and putting everything like on the line right now more than ever. Like I just want to say a big thank you for anyone that streams the music, anyone that listens to me, anyone that listens to my stupid corny jokes on social media, or like, you know, understands my humor, or like just takes any amount of time to DM me or talk to me or reply to me or just like give me some kind wishes. I just want to say how grateful I am. And I just want to like reiterate that, you know, although I'm a DJ, I'm still a normal person. So I still, have a day job, and I have, other priorities, and it does feel like a double life sometimes, being known for your music and then being known for like me as a person. So just even having the ability to like, intertwine that with each other and just like get to know people. Like I'm very grateful that I get to like meet people like you, meet people like other DJs, other people in music, other people out in music. So I'm just very lucky to be Afinity, very lucky to be Aria, very lucky to be alive. And I'm just hoping that with this project being so new and it still has many more years to go, a lot more room to grow, that I can turn this into a full-time thing, and I can just like put my all into it without having to worry about any external factors like a job or stability. So it means a lot that people come and support me in any way they can, like whether it's for the shows, whether it's like I mentioned for the DMs, whether it's for the messages, whether it's for the pure company or friendship. Like I just want to say that like me and other artists who are both DJs and normal people, like it means a lot that we get to get that reaction from you guys and get that love back. So it's all I have to say is thank you.
Oh, nice. Humble guy. We like it. That's what we like to see.
Yeah. I think we'll call it there.
So that has been the Source Stacks podcast with myself, Insko, and TKC, and our guest Afinity. If you want to stream any of Afinity stuff, there will be links in the description. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're watching it on Spotify or anywhere else, then you can go and search him up, find him. He does have the EP fresh out now that we was talking about. We haven't heard it at the time of recording it, but we're sure it's great.
We'll listen to it. You'll see it on YouTube. Us listen to it. You'll see it.
Yeah, our reactions are on YouTube. Little self plug for that if you want to go check out our reactions to that. But yeah,
they're amazing.
Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here, Afinity. We appreciate it.
Anytime, guys.
And we'll see you all in the next one.
Peace.
Goodbye.
Peace.
Perfect.